Welcome back, Chappelle. All right, so part number 2 out of 5 of this Weeko Flips, right? So getting after it, you guys are impressing me so much. Y'all are killing the game right now. You're moving expeditiously. Those of you who really got in and watched that Catholic Church flip, y'all killed it, right? This one tonight promises to be quite a bit shorter, but let's go ahead and get after it so we don't take up your entire evening, all right? But go ahead and warm up your pipes. Go ahead and give me a yeah. All right, because you're going to need to holler something here in a little bit. All right. So in class, we left off talking about the takeover of England. Also, today's stuff can get kind of confusing, but you're going to need to make a couple little notations in your notes and stuff like that, okay? Because we're actually going to talk about one thing a little out of order, but I think it's appropriate to talk about it a little out of order because it's a big deal, all right? So just make sure you're ready for that, right, as I fix my hair because it's annoying me because there's this little bump thing right here. Now, anyway, so we left off the class talking about in 1066 when one of Alfred the Great's descendants died, right? King Edward dies without an heir to the throne. He had a bunch of daughters, and one of them was married to this dude, Harold Godwinson, which is the son of one of Edward's advisors as well, right? Harold Godwinson, as you can tell, also has really crusty picture of himself, which means he's probably not going to be the winner, all right? So, but then you've got William of Normandy, who claims as a relative of Alfred the Great, a distant one at that, who is Normandy, by the way, is in northern France, so this guy speaks French, and he's actually descendant of the Franks, but he claims that he had been promised the throne by... This is supposed to say Alfred the Great. By Alfred the Great himself, right? So this is going to result in a conflict of interest over the throne of England, right? And what's going to break out is one of the most pivotal events in all of history. It's known as the Battle of Hastings, right? Now, really quick, the Bayeux Tapestry. All right, so ironically enough, this is a very important event. And this right here is the only documented evidence that we have of it. You see this big thing right here? It's called the Bayeux Tapestry, right? This is the only historic account we have of the Norman invasion of England, right? This thing is like High Middle Ages in a nutshell. Look how terribly this is done. That's some weird bird cat, and this is some weird, these are knights and stuff about to take it over. But it's called the Bayeux Tapestry, right? And the Bayeux Tapestry serves as a very good relic to this Norman invasion of England, right? So go ahead and write down the Norman invasion of England. Norman, as in from Normandy, right? So William of Normandy brings his troops up, and at the Battle of Hastings, right, in 1066, conflict's going to break out over who should become king, right? And this is right down from London, right? This is actually near this little port city called Hastings, okay? So William wins the battle and is going to become king of England. Spoiler alert, all right? I'm just kind of taking you to the end a little bit. I got to tell you a couple other little crazy things that happen, okay? Harold Godwinson is going to die in that battle, okay, from an arrow to the eye. And a lot of y'all are saying, this is the second guy we've heard in history that's gotten hit in the eyeball with an arrow. First of those guys being, of course, Philip II, father of Alexander the Great. Except Harold Godwinson died because his arrow, unlike Philip's, Philip's arrow went like this and went out the back of his head, whereas Harold Godwinson's arrow went like this and straight into his brain. Here's the other crazy part to it about it as well. Apparently, Harold Godwinson was wearing a helm, which is an armored helmet, right? So his face was covered up all the way to here, and the arrow snuck through right there and just went kink, and killed him actually in battle. Now, he got shot in the eye with an arrow. That's insane. But this battle is crazy because Harold's also strategically an idiot. All right, so Harold created this thing called a shield wall, right? Now, shield walls are an old Roman thing, right? This idea of creating a large set of troops with shields and swords. But Harold was not expecting William of Normandy to roll up with a multifaceted, multi-occupational, truly advanced army, right? So William of Normandy actually even showed up with an army of different divisions, right? He had archers up front that rained down a sea of arrows on top of all of Harold's troops, causing them to disperse and causing a lot of chaos. And that's also when Harold got hit in the eye with the arrow, right? And he died. And then you had their infantry right here, and then in the back, the cavalry. So the archers rained down these arrows and just destroy Harold's shield wall, right? And the Bretons are going to fall back, and then they're going to go after him, and then they charge out with the cavalry and then with the infantry, taking them all the way back, and Harold is going to be victorious in his assault, and William is going to earn himself a new nickname. He's going to be known as William the Conqueror, right? So I'm also going to drop a couple of little short videos that are going to be down here at the bottom in the description that you can also watch too if you just want to get a better understanding of this whole thing. Well, William is going to begin to centralize power, and he claims all the land in England for himself as his own property. So the Kingdom of England, as you can see, actually included all this area right here and a little chunk of northern France, right? So here's the insane part too. Your king, his dominant language is now French, right? And all the Angles and the Saxons that have been led by Harold Godwinson and formerly Alfred the Great, they all spoke a thing called English, right? So what ended up happening is these two languages melded together, right? And that's why English is one of the toughest languages to learn in all of the entire world, because we have elements of Latin-based French language in our system, and then we also have elements of completely Germanic languages in our system, right? So it's actually a very, very interesting thing, but it eventually becomes the modern-day form of English, right? So he claims all that land in England, and then he also starts setting up the feudal system with England by giving land to his supporters throughout all of England, right? So then he creates this thing. William the Conqueror writes his Doomsday Book, right? I know it says Doomsday, but it's pronounced the Doomsday Book, right? And in the Doomsday Book, he created the setup for an efficient taxation system because it was a survey of all the people living in England under his rule, what they owned, and how much they could pay in taxes. It's an income tax system. It's an efficient tax system, right? And so this Doomsday Book is massively important because it sets England up as an advanced high Middle Ages society that is having an efficient tax system, multiple kingdoms, multiple cities, like land that goes to all these different nobles and supporters, and a centralized government is spreading out of London, right? Or Londinium, the former Roman city. So then, hold up. Wait a minute. Take a second. All right? So we are actually going to go ahead and just, you know what? We're going to go ahead and stop there. All right, we're going to stop there with the Battle of Hastings stuff. We're going to wrap all that up to give you a short flip because y'all did so much last night, right? And then tomorrow, we're going to get into the Crusades, and we're going to get into some other stuff. We'll play a little review game if we have enough time at the end of class. It's going to be good. All right, so, and then we'll get into the Crusades a little bit tomorrow, all right? So I'll see you guys then. Have a great evening. Ha! Psych! All right, so anyway, now, I know a couple of y'all got really excited, and you're going to think I'm such a bad person. But we do need to go over, like, one more little thing. And when I say little thing, it's actually a wildly important thing, all right? So in your notes, really, really quick, I know that we're right now in the year 1066, but we're about to get a little weird. And some of y'all are going to get confused. Some of y'all are going to be like, I don't understand what's going on. But I just need you to put this in your notes so you can chronologically understand where we are, where we're going, what we're talking about, right? So in 1066 is the Battle of Hastings and the conquest of England by the Normans under William the Conqueror, a.k.a. William of Normandy. He takes Harold Godwinson's throne, shot in the eyeball with an arrow. That's all dead, said and done, right? In 1099, write this down. In 1099, the Crusades begin, all right? So the Crusades begin. There are nine crusades, right? 9 holy wars that actually occur. So we are going to talk about like the big 3, all right? But we are going to take time in class to talk about the Islamic faith, right? Talk about like how that whole thing blew up and then like the entire like cultural explosion they had, the Islamic Golden Age, and then they ended up taking over a small area that happens to be a very holy place for Christians as well as everybody else, right? So the big thing about it is we're going to take time to talk about that in depth. But I have to talk about something else to go along with this establishment of England stuff, right? So you just need to have in your notes somewhere right now, 1099, the Crusades begin, and then if you want to make a little note, be like, we're going to talk about these more later, all right? Just be like, we're going to talk about these more later. Now, and then so, but we do need to talk about something else, which is very, very important. So fast forward in history to about 1200, all right? Some of you are like, oh, 100 years. Yes, about 1200, right? About 100 years forward. So England is now a country. It's got pieces of land in France. They're speaking English, right? They're doing their thing. And they're currently being led in about 1200, it's circa 1200, by a guy named King Richard the Lionhearted, which he sounds like a what? Like a truly great man. But ironically, he's a pretty bad king, right? He didn't even live in England for most of the time that he was actually king. He loved fighting wars, right? Like he would much rather be at war than he would be at peace. So he very rarely ever even was in the country that he's supposed to be running. And he used all the tax money to keep fighting these wars, right? Well, ironically enough, in this overzealousness, he chooses to go off and fight in the Third Crusade, right? And in the process of him returning, which we'll talk about him more later, he gets kidnapped, right? Gets kidnapped by a duke in what is now Germany, right, or in Bohemia, and then he ends up, or that's the Czech Republic, but like in the Holy Roman Empire, he gets kidnapped, right? And so in his stead, while he is gone, since he is kidnapped, it's either his cousin or his brother. I think it's I think it's his cousin. This could be wrong. We'll double check that later, all right? So, but one of his relatives is in charge, and he is elected as King John, right? King John is such a garbage king that he doesn't even get a number. He's a punk. He's also the antagonist in all the Robin Hood stories because he's such a punk, all right? So King John, punk, all right? So that's one of his younger, family members, all right? Doesn't even get a number. Actually, the people holding King Richard the Lionhearted ransom actually asked for ransom money from King John, and King John's like, you can keep him. And they didn't even want him to come back because he was the King of England right now, right? So while King John's the King of England, though, the north of France that England still owns after William of Normandy gets attacked by the other Frenchmen, and they're like, we want this back, all right? So, and they end up, England loses all of its territory in northern France. So all that stuff, that Normandy stuff, where William originally came from, William the Conqueror originally came from, it's now all what? It's gone, right? And whenever you fight a war, wars tend to be very expensive, especially when you lose, right? So when you lose, you owe a lot of money to a lot of people, right? And since he lost most of England's lands in France to this really, really expensive war, except for this one little squirrely part called called Aquitaine, but mainly that's just because there's some marriages and stuff. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, he begins to raise taxes on the nobles. And I don't mean slightly. He raises them a lot, right? So, and the nobles are like, whoa, 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 whoa. You cannot just unfairly tax us just because you feel like it, because you're a punk and you can't fight wars, King John. Nobody likes you anyway. We don't even want you to be king, right? It's circa 1200. We don't even like Richard, all right? So anyway, now, nobles were very upset about this entire thing, right? So they decide, wait a minute. This guy's got nothing, all right? So he doesn't have a standing army. He doesn't have a professional army. He has no way to stop us. If he ever wants to go to war, whose vassals is he using? Ours. Who's fighting these wars for him? We are. And they're like, wait a minute. This is bananas. Our feudal system keeps him in power. And so they raise their own army, and they force King John to sign the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta. The Magna Carta. The Magna Carta. Magna Carta. For the rest of your existence, whenever you hear the word Magna Carta, you should be so gleaming with excitement because it sets up all of your basic rights, right? How many of y'all like free speech? Magna Carta. How many of y'all like the fact that cops can't come take your stuff unlawfully? Magna Carta. How many of you like the fact that you can't be imprisoned without just cause? Magna Carta. How many of you, Magna Carta! All right, so the Magna Carta is wildly important. And just for the rest of your life, every time you hear the word Magna Carta, say yay, right? Yay, you're excited about it, Magna Carta. Yay! You got to be excited, stoked, thrilled for the Magna Carta, all right? Because the Magna Carta is a document that limits the power of your ruler. And this is only in England, just somewhere nearby, just say only in England, right? So this is a document that limits the power of the king, right? It means in Latin the Great Charter, or the Great Document, right? And this lays the groundwork for democracy in Europe, right? It lays the groundwork for an idea, a concept, a theory, that no man is above everyone else. No man is above the law, right? So the Magna Carta, thank you. All right, so anyway, now, I'm going to try this. Wait, let's try this again. Y'all can get louder than that. The Magna Carta, thank you, all right? I better hear a lot of y'all, all right? And tomorrow, we're talking to you, A period, right? Y'all been doing so good, okay? I'm talking to you, D, especially people in D period, I need to hear Adeline, Margaret, right? Margaret, I want to hear you, hollering and stuff. F period, Olivia Fran, Olivia Robinson, Ella, all right? Get excited, Magna Carta. Yeah. All right, so now, lays the groundwork for democracy in Europe, establishes also the first legislative bodies. The big one in Britain is known as the British Parliament, all right? So this is the first time a legislative body has been seen since the fall of Rome, right? This is a huge, big flipping deal, all right? So the basic principles of the Magna Carta, thank you, is that the king cannot raise taxes without the approval of a council of nobles and clergy, right? Later, these councils are going to become, hold on. Prayer. hasten to help us. God will provide. Magna Carta. Now, anyway, so later these things are going to become the British Parliament, which become the councils of, like, people that actually advise the king, right? Now, it's not going to always be nobles and clergy. It's eventually going to evolve into the House of Commons and the House of Lords, but we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about absolutism in Europe, right? The king also says, according to the Magna Carta, that you cannot arrest people without just cause or take property unlawfully. It also gives you another amazing right called habeas corpus, which in Latin means having the body of proof, which means you have the right to a trial by jury at any moment before you can be convicted of anything. It also says that the king must obey the law and was not above any of it, right? So that is the flip for tonight. We will talk about this stuff more tomorrow when we get into the Crusades and da-da-da-da-da. I'll see you guys then. Have a great evening.